Okay, so just bear with me while I click through these slides. So the next battle here that we need to cover is a battle or a place at least that you've likely heard of before in Canadian history here, and that is the Battle of Vimy Ridge. Now, this is a critical battle for Canadians for a variety of reasons, which I will explain as we go through things here. Um, but just as a segue between Vimy and the Somme, following the fallout of the Somme campaign, because it involved so many casualties, and Canadian casualties specifically were astronomically high in relation to the number of troops that we had sent over. There was scathing criticism of Douglas Haig's leadership in terms of the British military. And we'll see that Robert Borden, the Canadian Prime Minister, was beginning to voice those concerns that Canadians had. And the nature of his complaint was this, is that he said, Canadian troops have been involved in this war since its inception, and they've never had an opportunity to fight together under Canadian leadership in Canadian units. And he was demanding that if Canada was going to continue on in this war, that a Canadian general be appointed and that Canadians be assigned to their own division. And ultimately, we'll see that England relents and they agree to allow the Canadians to form their own regiment. And we'll see the first Canadian general will be appointed, and that is who you see on this slide here. This is Arthur Currie. So he will take command of the Canadian force. Now, some might say that in a design-to-fail move, Currie is going to be assigned the difficult task of taking Vimy Ridge. Now, Vimy was a strategic high point here in along the Western Front. And just to give you an idea, so here we are. So we can see the Somme down here by the river. Canadians fought up here at Ypres. And here is Vimy, sort of between those two locations. Now, Vimy being a ridge, geographically speaking, it would be a difficult task to take. The Germans had commanded this ridge essentially since the beginning of the war. Now, the British had failed to take it from German control in 1915, and in 1916, a French force had failed in a miserable way to take it from the Germans, leaving behind their dead. That campaign had ended in over the course of the winter months, and the ground was too hard for them to bury the dead. So when the Canadians arrived at Vimy Ridge, this is what they're going to find, knowing that this ridge here had been, with two repeated attempts by both the British and French, had been both unsuccessful. So that doesn't bode well, I think, for a young group of Canadian soldiers. Nonetheless, this is the assignment, and Currie, we'll see, part of the reason why he was appointed general was his skills lay in military strategy. So he was a great planner, and we'll see that Currie has to come up with a strategic plan here for taking a ridge. Now, if we think about what a ridge is, we're really talking about like a high point, a rise in an otherwise flat or clear plain of land. Now, the Germans were up on top of that ridge, and of course, the Canadians had to try to scale that ridge, so fighting uphill essentially. Now, that in itself, you could think about all of the obstacles that would bring. So Currie's got to come up with an idea here of how to do that. Now, Currie did some unconventional things that were criticized by his counterparts. One of the things he did was he ordered a scale model of the ridge to be built behind the lines. So, and the thinking was this, is that, Currie felt that men were often ordered to move in locations where they'd never been before. These were Canadian soldiers. They'd never been to Vimy Ridge before. They didn't know what they were looking at. So his thinking was, well, let's show these guys what the battlefield looks like before they actually arrive. This way, when we talk about the battle plan with the men, they actually will understand when we say you move here or you go there. They understand what that's going to look like. So this was one of the unconventional things he did. I'll pause there and we'll pick up in a second.